I'm Mbweha, you can call me Ben of Team Relentless, and this is the Playbook, where you can come to learn to do something very specific in Star Wars Legion, a little bit better than you did before, I hope. Today we're talking about Bombing Run. Nope, but thanks for the throwback.
Destroy that last bomber!
Closer, but not in space. There it is! Right, so Bombing Run is one of the most popular and probably my personal favorite of the objectives in the game right now. It makes for exciting matches where the entire table can see action and a player can win on victory points even when nearly getting tabled. Now, just real quick, let's talk about that. Some people in Legion get way tilted when the winner of the match is way down on kill points. And I want to remind everyone that since time immemorial, games of Legion have been won by victory points, which is why in almost every episode of the Playbook, I remind you to play to the objective. And if you're someone who finds that a tough pill to swallow, I suggest you think of it like how in baseball, the winner of the game is the team with the most runs, not the most hits.
That's good advice!
Number 1, best bomb carriers. So the first thing you have to choose when you're playing Bombing Run is who are going to be your bomb carriers. Well, technically you don't choose until after deployment, but before you deploy, you would better know who your bomb carriers are. In general, you want the most mobile and defensive units you have available dropping bombs.
Bombs?
It's also pretty important that you have good activation control over them. So given that, let's take a look at some of the best bomb carriers in the game. Wow, you might be thinking, that's a lot of data for my eyes to look at. And you'd be right, which is why in the description there's a link to this table so you can stare at it to your heart's content later. For now, we're going to just focus in on a few units. So the tables are sorted by faction, and then by how far they can move in a single turn, and then by their defensive rating. It's not a strict rank order per se, but with the exception of the Rebels, I do think that the ideal bomb carrier for each faction rose to the top. The first thing to notice is how dang far speeders can move. Having that level of mobility means that you should be able to pilot them to safe areas on the board and score victory points. While it's true that they're more fragile, you should be flying them in such a way that they don't even get shot at until after they've dropped their bomb off and scored.
Bombs away!
The other advantage that speeders have is that they give exactly zero womp rats about suppression, and they can't be trapped in melee, making them excellent independent operators. The next thing to notice is them Mandalorians.
Ah! Mando!
With jump to nearly 16 inches of movement and 2/3 saves, these are by far the best non-speeder bomb carriers in the game. If you use them to carry your bombs, however, you need to keep an eye on suppression, as losing an action or even worse, panicking could definitely cost you the game. Oh, and by the way, the color coding of the unit types in the data tables indicates if they take suppression or not.
Good idea.
A few other quick notes about this data table. The movement distance I listed for dues is for if they double spur, which they should certainly only do if it puts them into a position where they can go boom for points. Tauntauns and Droideka are excellent bomb carriers on paper, but with Tauntauns you need to watch the suppression, and with Droideka you need to be careful about going into ball mode and getting nuked off the board. And whether or not to use the AAT or the Saber as a bomb carrier is really going to vary from case to case. If you can spend the game strafing and firing, they're honestly pretty good, and they can sprint in a pinch. However, that's a lot of firepower that you're devoting towards something that typically you want to have done as far away from your opponent as possible. I think it's probably a pretty safe play as blue player when your opponent is likely running towards you, but as red player, I wouldn't try it. Number 2, planning ahead in deployment. Bombing Run requires a heck of a lot more planning than any other objective.
It is the future, you see.
Before you start deploying, you need to be able to answer the following questions. Which units am I giving bombs to? Which units am I using to mess with my opponent? How did Luke learn to be a Jedi in like 2 weeks? What paths seem safest to deliver bombs? What turns do I intend to explode bombs? And why don't ships in Star Wars have locks or keys? I mean, really stop and think about it. You have the technology to build a spaceship that can fly through hyperspace, but you don't know how to make a key ignition system so someone can't steal it? Come on, Incom Corporation! There's a certain amount of chaos inherent to Bombing Run that you just need to embrace. During deployment, part of your plan needs to be that you are going to adapt as needed. Ideally, you're going to deploy your bomb carriers in such a way that they can sprint to an unguarded section of your opponent's deployment zone. This is most easily done on rollout, disarray, and advanced positions. If you're a rebel player, you should probably also include battle lines because it's also especially good for R2. And if you're expecting to be blue player, hemmed in can also work well. So yeah, as you can see, each of these deployment zones has a place where you should hopefully be able to drop your bomb carriers and have very, very good options for how to get them to score points while totally unmolested by your opponent's units. Also, save your bomb carriers for last when deploying. This is especially powerful when you out-activate your opponent, as they may not even be able to counter-deploy you. Number 3, dropping bombs. The ideal bomb drop is one that is completely safe from being picked up by your opponent. This can be achieved in one of two ways. The bomb is dropped far enough away from your opponent's troopers that they won't be able to move and grab it before it goes boom, or it's dropped around units that have already activated and the bomb is going to go boom that turn. Something that's often missed about bombing run, at least at first, is that while you can only explode one bomb per round, you can explode bombs that you dropped on previous rounds. So it's possible that you could drop 2 or even all 3 of your bombs all on the same turn if you're sure that your opponent's troopers aren't going to be able to get to them and grab them before they go off.
Bring the bombs!
Speaking of which, number 4, exploding bombs. Almost always, if you have a bomb down ready to detonate and score victory points, you push that plunger. It does not matter if it hits your bomb carrier. It is worth taking damage on the carrier unit to score the victory point.
Remember, bombs first.
The only time you would wait to detonate is if you are 100% sure that your opponent is not going to be able to get to that bomb and pick it up. And that bomb, if you explode it right then, is going to hit your own unit. And there's still plenty of rounds left in the game to blow it up later. But other than that, boom goes the dynamite.
I love bombs.
And don't trick yourself into thinking that using the bombs as offensive tools is a good idea. If you happen to hit enemy units with it, lucky you, but that's never the goal. The bombs are victory point machines, not offensive tools. Number 5, disrupting your opponent. At the beginning of the game, you need to do some quick calculus on what the victory point situation at the end of the game is likely to be. Assume that both players get all 3 points from their bombs and that they score any secret missions they have available, and that no units are destroyed. Who would win? If the answer is you, then congratulations. You can just focus on doing your victory points and sit back and wait for your opponent to come to you and then rock their socks off. If the answer is that your opponent would win, then it's time to figure out how to change that. Generally speaking, the best bet here is just to put every unit you have that isn't a bomb carrier in the path of your opponent's bomb carriers. Your goal is to slow them down so much that they're not able to score all 3 victory points with their bombs.
Bombs!
Bombs! Bombs! Bombs! Bombs!
But if nothing else, you need to tie them on victory points and come out ahead on points destroyed. Of course, if they have a higher ceiling of victory points than you because of something like secret mission, then you absolutely must stop them from scoring at least one of their victory points. This would be an appropriate time to point out that having a higher activation count than your opponent on bombing run is huge. Not only does it let you hold your bomb carriers back so that they can hopefully move and drop a bomb unopposed, but it lets you hold your own trooper units back so that they can hop on your opponent's bombs and pick them up before they go off.
You get the bombs.
Bonus. Remember that your bomb carriers have to be within your deployment zone, so do not scout or infiltrate with them. Also keep that in mind for your vehicles on rollout. Remember that you can use melee engagement to trap enemy bomb carriers away from your deployment zone, or to trap enemy troopers that are waiting to try to snag your bombs. You could even accomplish the latter with your own bomb carriers if they're troopers themselves. Oh, and just FYI, I put my favorite bombing run list for each faction in the description. Summary. Let's review. Number 1, the best bomb carriers are highly mobile and durable. Number 2, you need to do a lot of planning before you even deploy. Number 3, drop bombs in such a way that they can explode unopposed. Number 4, just about always push the plunger regardless of friendly fire. And number 5, plan ahead about how you're going to disrupt your opponent, assuming you need to. Now you know how to play bombing run better than you did before. I hope. If you like the video, please prove it and subscribe if you're into that sort of thing. I'm Mbweha, you can call me Ben of Team Relentless, and this has been the Playbook Bombing Run.